Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game Develop Repeat. For those of you listening to this as it comes out, who celebrate Christmas or some other holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that good stuff. And welcome to the show. Honored that you're listening to it on such a busy and often chaotic day for some of us. I am recording on Christmas Eve, so it's going to be a little bit of a chill, relaxed vibe. I might be just a little more casual with this episode than usual, although I am fairly casual with the way that I structure these things anyway. We're talking about a game called the Gnorp Apologue, and I'm hoping that I pronounced that correctly. Gnorp, Gnorp, Apologue. It is an idle game or an incremental game. The only other game in this genre that I've covered is Cookie Clicker, which is weirdly compelling. So we will be talking about some idle game stuff. And honestly, most of the reason I want to talk about this game is because I opened it up, I started playing it, and I was just instantly charmed. It's just a deeply charming game. And I feel like it deserves some coverage, and I deserve to give myself a chance to digest why it was so charming, because there was this moment when I started playing it that made me go, oh wow, this is a really cool game. And I want to go into that a little bit. And then we'll talk about some development lessons we can take away from it and all that stuff, right? All the usual stuff, and we'll check in about my weekly challenge and all the good stuff. So let's get going. Idle games are a super interesting genre, or incremental games, or I'm not sure that I have the terminology right. It might be a little bit like the roguelike thing where people have very specific feelings about it. So apologies if I'm not getting the terminology correctly. I have not dug deep into it. This genre is, I feel like it's always just on the periphery of my vision. It's always just barely there in my mind. It's like, oh yeah, Cookie Clicker exists. I'm like, oh, there are a lot of games that have idle elements to it, and I kind of like this genre. It's kind of interesting. I think it's a lot deeper and wider than I have ever explored. And this game, the Gnorp Apologue, is a game that was able to suck me in and make me go, oh, maybe I should explore further. And then I quickly went, okay, wait, I need to not explore too far, because the way that I play these games, the way that I get into them is a little too life consuming. And I can't go down that path. I can't just be playing idle games obsessively. I started playing like Melvor Idle, I think it's called, which is like a RuneScape idle game. And I was like, oh, you know what? This is a bad idea. I need to stop. Because I can't just set it and forget it. I get really roped into it. For anybody who's not aware of this genre that I'm talking about, just in case, just on the odd chance, an idle game is essentially a game which you set it up to play itself. So you set up a bunch of stuff, and then you let it run for a bit, and then you come back, you collect your resources, and then you build some new stuff, and then you let it run, collect your resources, build some new stuff, and the stuff just like gets you more resources on its own. You're basically like managing it to operate efficiently. That's kind of the general explanation. The Gnorp Apologue is cute. It's an idle game that has a great, cute aesthetic to it. It has this great pixel art look to it. It's got like basically a 2-color theme going on. You got your background, then you got your color of your Gnorps. It's I mean, fundamental. There's more colors going on than that for sure. There's like particle effect style stuff. It's all very pixel art oriented. And the art is charming. This is what roped me into it, and I think this is what roped me into Cookie Clicker. And I think this is also why I ignore a lot of idle games. If an idle game has like an art style and a bit of comedy that clicks for me, I'm in it, right? Cookie Clicker has this ridiculous comedy and this goofy art, and it pulls me right in there. Gnorp Apologue has just a hint of comedy, just a little tasteful sprinkling throughout. It's not the thing where it tries too hard. That kind of drives me crazy when games do that. But it's got just a few little chuckles in there. And it's also very, very charming aesthetically. When I played it, I was like, I'm a little jealous of this pixel art. It's so minimal and so charming. It comes across very clearly and very powerfully while being quite simple. It's got style. It's got beautiful style to it. And I'm a huge fan of the visuals. It's so tastefully done, might be the phrase for it. I can tell that the person who made it has good taste in pixel art. And maybe that's just because it is to my tastes, but based on the number of positive reviews that this thing is getting and the proportion of reviews that are positive, I would say that I'm not alone in believing that there's some really good taste in how this art came out. Really good art direction, I guess, from this solo developer. That's the other element that pulls me in. You know, I'm a sucker for a solo developer. It always inspires me. This is a solo developed game. I love seeing a successful solo developed game, and it was $7. I got it on like a 10% off release discount, so it was like $6.20, but $7. Solid game, pretty enjoyable. Here's what I think makes it stand out, because that's what we like to focus on in this show. What makes it stand out and what we can learn from it, right? It shows progress in a lot of good ways. I think the idle games that don't quite do it for me or haven't roped me in, they might do it for me and they just haven't grabbed my attention, right? Like maybe now I'll dig deeper into the genre. I'm going to try not to because I think it'll be a problem if I do. I think the games that really rope me in are the ones that have a visual indicator of your progress that is satisfying. And the Gnorp Apologue has satisfying visual indicators. When you train a new Gnorp to go do a thing, he's freaking cute, or she, I don't know what their gender is. The Gnorp is freaking cute, and it goes and it does the thing, and it's just, you can see it working. You see all of your little Gnorp employees working and picking things up and dropping them off, and there's all this great impact to all your decisions versus just seeing a bar go up on a screen. And you can go deeper into the stats and stuff if you're just doing a bar on a screen. That's great. Good stuff. Good for you. I like it. It's cool, but it doesn't pull me in. The visual indication of progress being charming, putting all that effort into making those visuals, putting that polish into it, making these incredible animations, very simple but beautiful little animations that have so much charm and heart behind them. That really ropes me in. And using it to display gameplay. Like you can look at a glance and you can go, oh, I'm really focusing on these types of Gnorps. It feels weird saying that sentence. Doing this particular job for my economy. So I should upgrade those guys because I have way more of them, right? And you've also just got your easily accessible numbers and charts and all this stuff. And the developer is supporting this game like crazy. Like as soon as it came out, the developer was like, oh, hotfix, other hotfix. And he's like active in the Steam discussions and reading people's suggestions and going, okay, yeah, I'll do this. I made a suggestion about the UI. He's like, okay, I'm adding that to the list. Good stuff. Love to see it. Just love to see it. I looked into what engine was used, and I couldn't find that information. I don't know if SteamDB hasn't updated it yet. Like, I don't know if maybe it takes time for them to populate that info. I kind of doubt it. Maybe I tried to look into it. I couldn't find the info on the engine, so that's interesting, and I'd love to find that out. I'll have to look into it again, see if I can't find some information on it, because I'm very curious about it. I was like trying to guess, like, is this a homemade engine? Like, what's going on with this? Is it just not? I don't know. I guess it's not that important, honestly, at the moment. So, yeah, that I think I know that's one thing, but that's what makes it stand out to me. Actually, there's more. That's just what I want to focus on, is the visual indication of progress, the charming animation, and the feeling that you are actually running this kind of civilization through your actions. When I'm just working on a spreadsheet, I don't feel like I'm running a civilization. I feel like I'm just manipulating numbers on a spreadsheet, and it's not that interesting. And there's an icon next to this that has a fishing rod, or there's an icon next to this that has like a dagger or whatever, or what have you. It doesn't quite do it. It still does it. It still pulls me in because I like to see a number go up. I love watching a number go up. It's one of the most satisfying things in gaming, watching a number go up. I've been playing Darktide, and once I hit level 30, which is the max level, I was like, well, why am I going to keep playing? The number went up all the way. I'm at the top number. What? Am I going to keep playing? Am I going to focus on the gameplay? But the number is up high. It can't go higher. Why would I keep going? Even though that game is pretty good. Isn't that odd? Does anybody else have that where like number goes up and then once you hit level cap, you're like, okay, well, even though I really enjoy this game, the number is maxed out, so I can't make more progress, so I'm done. I don't know what the deal is with that. Maybe it's just like a very specific gamer tendency, but once the number maxes out, I feel like, well, I've accomplished the goal. And I have to like find a new goal or I just stop playing. I think generally I just stop playing. But anyway, I've gone onto a weird topic. I wonder how many of you are getting video games for Christmas? Or how many of you are giving video games for Christmas? Or how many of you are doing something game related for Christmas? Getting those Steam gift cards, you know? I feel like in this audience, it's probably happening. Whatever your games are, you know? I'm just so curious what people are playing this time of year, what new stuff people are picking out. And I'm curious what I'm going to end up playing to the end of the year. I'd love to finish Yakuza Like a Dragon before the year is up, but I don't know if I will. I don't have very long, you know. I've gone off track. I think that's my holiday brain. Let's get back on track and talk a little bit about sort of lessons we can learn from this game. This is a bit more of an abstract one today. I'm not so much going to go into like, oh, the pixel art, the animations, a little bit of, you know, a little bit of charm can go a really long way, and a little bit of polish can add a ton of charm to the game. I will talk about that a tiny bit. There's one point I want to touch on, but I want to talk about it a little bit more as like a metaphor. Anyway, let's just get into it. The first thing to talk about here is the polish in this game. I'm very happy about the level of polish in this game. I'm very happy with these little charming details that are sprinkled throughout. The moment that made me go, oh, this is a good game and I like this game a lot. I was playing, I upgraded this ability called Fire Arrows. This is a pretty early game, don't worry. It's like the mildest of spoilers. It's really not a spoiler. And the animation for the fire arrows made me very happy. When the fire arrows hit, I was like, oh, I like that animation. That's really nice. I like how that looks. I like everything going on here. It's very satisfying. It's very pleasing to me. It's got nice polish to it. It's got nice juice. It's a very juicy animation. You know, it's got that thing you want that makes you go, ooh, I'm having an impact. Oh, wow. The kind of thing where you add screen shake, the kind of thing where you add like a temporary time pause, anything with juice, nice sound effects. This game has good juice. And then another thing did it for me. There's a detail where some of my Gnorps had little Christmas hats. And I was like, wow, that is the cutest. This is such a low, like, graphical game. Like, it's pixel art. It's like very small number of pixels style pixel art, right? Very retro aesthetic. And they got these cute little Christmas hats for Christmas time. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. Those little details. That I think is the takeaway. If you enjoy making your game enough to where you go, oh, you know what's going to be cute is if I do this, or oh, you know what's going to be really fun, or you know what would be really satisfying is if I add this. I think that's where you want to be, you know? I think you want to be in this place where you're just deeply satisfied with the fun little things that you get to work on. Where you get to go, oh, what if I did this, right? It's like, have you ever played with, I'm thinking about this because it's like Christmas time and I'm going to see family and all this stuff, but have you ever played like Legos with a kid, or played with like some kind of little construction toy, or maybe you're just playing with like their dolls with them or whatever, and they have some creative idea and they're just so excited about it. There's so much joy. There's so much like, what if we do this? What if we do that? What if we did that? That's how I want to feel when I'm making games. I want to feel like, what if I did this crazy thing? What if I did this? That would be wild. Would that be good? And maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be terrible. But I like having these ideas that make me go, oh, that could be really fun for the player. The other person involved in this might have a great time if I add this. Or, oh, I would just enjoy that. A little screen shake here would add so much. A little sound effect here. I made a version of my game, and I shouldn't, maybe I shouldn't share this, but I'm going to. I made a version of Soot where when you die, the little Soot character references a video that my buddy and I had joked about, and he like curses in the exact tone of voice that the guy in the video does. Like, I imitated the voice. I got lucky with it. I was able to do the voice pretty well. I imitated this guy's voice and like inflection for like 2 or 3 phrases. So I've got all the normal Soot death noises, and then sometimes he says the profanity out of the video. And I gave this to my buddy, and he was playing it with his kids who are aware of that video, and it's like, it's all kosher. I wasn't exposing them to some profanity that they'd never heard before or anything, and we're good to go. And his kids got such genuine joy and laughter out of that stupid little joke that I put into the game. And so did he. We all got a good kick out of it. And I love stuff like that. I love just these little dumb little like Easter egg style design things, right? Obviously I didn't put that in the game itself, because I didn't want, I didn't want there to be a little touch of profanity in my little cute game. But it was such a good time. And I get the impression that this game was designed by somebody who was having a good time and doing it because it was making people happy, right? But that's just my impression. And maybe I'm just projecting what I want my game design to be like. But I suspect that the designer and developer, this was a solo developer. I think I already mentioned that in the first section. I suspect that they were having a good time with this. Let's talk about a few lessons, a few like broader takeaways. And I'm kind of just going to use idle games as an analogy for like skill development, right? I think we can look at an idle game and we can use it as like an analogy for learning a new skill. When you're first starting, y'all probably haven't played this game yet. I might use Cookie Clicker as an analogy too. All right, well, let's use Gnorp. Let's stick with Gnorp for a second. You get one Gnorp, and he goes and collects a little bit of this rock. All your Gnorps are collecting resources from a rock. So the Gnorp goes and hits the rock to create some resources. And then another Gnorp goes and collects resources off the rock. This is another element of the game that's really cool. It's not purely about generating more resources. You have to also manage your collection rate. So there's a cool management aspect of how quickly you're mining versus collecting resources from the rock. But anyway, let's say that you've got just a couple little Gnorps that are just getting a few rocks. So you've got a very slow rate of progress. But then you can build on that progress. And you can build on it further and further and further and further. And before you know it, you've got the crazy, super quick, powerful Gnorps that are just ripping through this rock and giving you tons of shards. And then you can upgrade even more and more and more and more. And then sometimes you hit like a breaking point or a plateau where you have to just wait a long time and keep going with that consistent effort. And the takeaway here that I'm trying to get at, the metaphor I'm trying to use here is, if we just put in consistent effort, even at a small scale, it allows us a little bit of room to grow. We collect some skills and then we can move forward a little bit, invest in some new skills, and then we collect more and we move forward a little bit. You can kind of see the analogy here. As you build momentum through this consistent effort that you're making, you can make more and more progress quicker and quicker and quicker. It's like success spirals happen, right? Success spirals are a thing, but you can't. Wow, I'm really talking to myself in this episode, aren't I? You can't expect yourself to just have a smash success out the gate, right? You can't expect yourself to just hide away, focus in on a thing, and say, this is going to succeed, and then put it out and then have it be a huge success or whatever, right? There's gradual steps. And even if your first project is a huge success, which does occasionally happen, there are tons of steps along that way. You don't just sit down one night and make a huge success. You have this whole process. You make garbage for a really long time. And then eventually you get to the point where all that garbage has been recycled and turned into some big success. So gradual progress, right? And these weird cycles that we go through. In a lot of clicker games, in a lot of idle games, there's this thing where you do like in Cookie Clicker, it's an ascension. In Gnorp, there's like two different versions of this. There's kind of like a prestige, and then there's also something called a compression. I'm not going to get into that because I kind of want you to experience it for yourself. But there's cycles that happen, and I think in anything there's like cycles, there's plateaus, there's a repetition to it in both the small scale and the large scale. And I do think in the large scale cycles in game development, it can be a little wild. It can be a little bit like you finish a full cycle and then maybe you take everything you learned from that cycle and you reinvest it, and then your next cycle goes a little faster, just like a prestige in an idle game. Just like in an idle game where you're like, oh, now I have these cool skills that make everything go a little faster. I've still got to do a lot to get jumping off. I've got to learn a whole new engine. I've got to do this whole thing. But once I get going, now I'm going to be a little faster than last time, or a little bit better. I'm going to put out a little bit higher quality stuff than last time, right? You're learning as you go, and each time you go through this cycle, you're getting more skilled. And sometimes you start the wrong build and you're like, oh, I got to abandon this cycle. Right? Sometimes that happens too. It's okay. Momentum. I think about momentum a lot. That's part of this whole cycle thing. It's part of this whole gradual progress thing. And the thing I'm running into now in my own development journey is loss of momentum and trying to build it back up. I think there's a phase. Sometimes you lose momentum. Let me just put it that way. Sometimes you lose momentum, and there's an art to getting it back. And I think part of it is patience. That is involved because, like, how long did it take for me to get that first project off the ground? I'm looking at things and I'm going, oh, well, when I was working on this project, this. But how long did it take for me to find that project? Like, how much exploring of different ideas did I do before I found that project? How much experimentation did I do? And am I counting that as part of the cycle? Because it is. It's part of the cycle. So I think about that, and I don't know. I think that's kind of what I have to say about the lessons to learn from this game. And I've kind of pivoted into talking about my own game dev stuff anyway. I guess that's my takeaway. The other part of my takeaway is it's just inspiring. I looked at this game's review numbers, excuse me. I can't English. I looked at this game's review numbers, and it has when I first looked, it had 600 or 700. I think it was overwhelmingly positive. And if you think about people always say like 1% of people review the game. Think about those numbers. That's a lot of people buying this game that this person seemingly made out of love, you know? And I always like to see that. I like to see passionate projects getting rewarded, so that those people can continue making things, because that's what I want. I want to see more passionate people making things. I don't want to see dispassionate games, you know? Like, it's fine. It's fine. Like, sure. Okay. Great. It's got to exist, I guess. But I just, every time, I'm going to do a whole episode on this at some point, on like genre expansion and like cloning and stuff. It's so weird. Every time I see a game that feels like it's just a clone of another game, I have such a weird feeling about it. I really pivot between, oh my God, this is incredible, and I'm so glad that this genre is expanding and that people are inspired, and is this just a money grab? You know? So anyway, to bring this back to the positive point that I was making, it's really, really lovely to see such a passionate, like, project succeeding and people acknowledging it and noticing it and it growing and all this great stuff. Really cool game. Highly recommend. Gnorp Apologue, once again, just for the name for you there. Let's talk about my own development really quickly. I said last week that I was going to finish the Godot 2D game thing on the like documentation, just the make your first 2D game step-by-step thing. And I did, so I have a little bit more of a feel for Godot. I like it. There's something about the signals that makes me go, oh, this might be a little, I don't know if this is really clean or a little unwieldy for the way that my brain works. It's either, for how I operate, it's either going to introduce a ton of bugs or it's going to be marvelous. And I think it's good. I need to play around with it more, though. I have a few ideas for ways to play around with it. And I think that's about what I did this week in development. This was a very, not a very productive week, I would say. But I did do a little bit of Godot, and I did meet my challenge. It was an intentionally small challenge. That's kind of how I do that, to make sure that it's genuinely productive rather than turning into like a negative thing. I like small challenges. I don't know about you, but sometimes people are like, I'm going to run a marathon. And it's like, how about just challenge yourself to go for a walk every day, right? That's more my pace. I even go smaller than that. I don't go, this is all from that friggin' Micro Habits book that I read forever ago. People might be aware of like Atomic Habits or something like that. This is like a smaller version of that kind of thought process. I think it came out before Atomic Habits. But I'm a big fan of ridiculously easy goals and challenges. I like doing the really, really easy version of things and saying, that's the line. That's what we have to accomplish. And then anything beyond that is bonus points. That way, if you're having a miserable week, you can just accomplish the thing and be like, well, I still tackled a challenge this week. So I'm going on tangents like crazy today. Forgive me. Please forgive the tangents. Let's wrap this up with some questions. I said questions, but I actually only have one this week. And that question is, what brings you joy? And I feel the need to justify this question, to tie it into game development. I don't know that I actually need to, but I feel the need to, so I'm going to. I think if we pay attention to what brings us joy, it shows us what we love about life and what we love about what we're doing. It shows us what it is that we want to communicate to other people, what positive thing it is that we want to put out, and like, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to improve? What joyful thing do we want to show other people? And sometimes what brings you joy is not like a joyous thing. sometimes I just, this is such a weird thing to say, but sometimes I just love just like being so mad about something. Like in a weird way. Not like, oh, I'm so overjoyed about this, but have you ever just been furious at a telemarketer and just had like this righteous fury where you're like, I know that I am right and they should not be doing this and I am vindicated, right? There's a kind of a joy in that. Why is this relevant to game development? Why is this relevant to this podcast? Because if something brings you some kind of joy, it might be something you enjoy sharing with people. It might be something you want to like play around with or figure out how to communicate. And that might motivate you to make a game. Maybe the thing that brings you joy is something that would be fun to just make a game out of. Maybe you love some specific animal. And you're like, you know what, I'll make some art about that animal. And then maybe you make the art about the animal and you, oh, what if I animate this? And then before you know it, you're making like a cute little platformer, right? Or before you know it, you're making a little shooter based on like a gerbil or something. I don't know. What have you. Like, there's so many things that can stem out of paying attention to what brings you joy. And it's something that I want to focus on more because I think it's a nice mindset. And I'd like it to be my default mode. It's not, you know, but I'd like to look at development as like sharing the things that I am excited about with the world, sharing the things that make me feel joyful. That'd be good. And sometimes that means sharing intense emotional experiences. Like we have all these games that are about depression. We have so many indie games that are allegories for depression, that are just like all these elaborate metaphors and all this stuff. That exists. It's a big thing. But sometimes what brings somebody joy is expressing something that is deep inside of them and hard to communicate. And they're just trying to get that out into the world so that they can understand, so that they can get understanding from other people, right? Or help other people understand themselves. I think that's a version of this. I don't think it has to be like happy, go lucky, bubblegum, cheerful, right? So maybe connecting with other people brings joy, and then that comes into your game design. I've gone on about this longer than I intended to. But that's the question. Oh, and what brings me joy? I didn't answer my own question, did I? All that talk and no answer. Yeah. I don't know. What brings me joy? That's a hard question. There's a lot in there. The outdoors, weightlifting, fishing mini games in video games. I don't know why. I still don't know why. I love that so much. Some food. There's a lot of things that bring me joy, right? Anyway, that's the question for this week, is just what brings you joy? And the tip for this week is to focus on consistent, gradual improvement. I probably said this before because it's something I constantly need to remind myself of because I can get a little overexcited and a little impatient for reaching goals. But that consistent, gradual improvement will just keep moving you closer and closer to whatever it is that you're trying to reach. And I have a challenge for myself this week, and I'd encourage you to throw yourself some little tiny challenges too. And I say tiny very intentionally. I find that tiny challenges work marvelously. My tiny challenge for myself this week is to open Godot every day for a week. Don't even have to do anything in it. I'll probably end up doing something in it once it's open, but I don't have to. If I'm tired, if I'm exhausted, if it's a rough week, whatever it is, if I'm too busy, if a friend is in town, all that good stuff, I can close out of it. It's fine. But I just got to open it every day this week because no matter what happens, I'll be able to open it, right? So I'll do that. What I find is if I set a goal that easy, what I end up doing is a lot more than just opening it. If it's something I genuinely want to do, I'll open it and then I'll do a bunch of stuff because I want to do it. And I just gotta break through that initial barrier. Like, because I deeply want to do this thing and I have most of the tools that I need to do it, I'll do it as soon as it's right in front of me. I just got to get it right in front of me. And if I don't want to do it when it's right in front of me, something else is going on and I need to give it a rest, right? That's fine. But yeah, this week my challenge is just to open Godot every day. That's everything I have for you. I hope you have a great holiday season. If you're listening to this the rest of the year, well, I hope you have a great week, great month, great whatever. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I appreciate you hanging out. I found out, did I mention this at the top of the episode? 75 countries. This podcast has been listened to in 75 countries over the last year. I don't know how much of that is bots or what, but 75 countries is wild. That is a crazy statistic. That's really cool. Big fan of that. So thank you, everybody, for listening across the world. That's bizarre and really, really cool. But anyway, thank you all for listening. Have a great week. Get out there, make some stuff, have fun with it. And I will see you in the next one. I'll see you in the new year. Bye-bye.